Well, good Thursday morning, everyone. I have to sort of apologize for yesterday's kind of abrupt ending to our morning visit. Uh, Now we have a landline. Okay, now I have a cell phone, but Constance, insisted, I think wisely, that we also have a landline too. Uh, just cause. And I usually take the landline off the hook before I do my little show. Uh, and I have to do it, a couple minutes before we go on. Because when you take the receiver off the hook, uh, it sets up a little alarm, beep, 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 to just in case it's warning you, hey, your phone's accidentally off the hook, and that lasts for about a minute or 2 minutes or something. And I don't like to have that going on in the background. So I started yesterday's talk, uh, and I forgot to take it off the hook. Now, the bad thing about landlines is that the number is easily accessed by robocalls and sales pitches and scams, things like that. So we have a little recording. And I say, "Hi, you've reached Lon and Constance. Please leave your name, your number, your social security number, and the maiden name of your mother, and we'll try to get a call back as soon as possible," or something like that. And that way we can weed out the robocalls. And if it is somebody, they'll go, "Hello, hello, Lon and Constance. This is you know." Uh, so we screen our calls that way. I don't want to have to do that. The phone's on the hook right now, as a matter of fact. Uh, I don't want to have to do that. So when it happens during my show, very often I'll go, "Hello," and because I'm forced to deal probably with somebody from some call center, and it is so irritated that I often cruelly play. Constance hates me when I do that. I'll say, "Who is this? How did you get our number?" and things like that. And Constance usually comes in and says, "Just hang up. He's toying with you. He's being mean to you. Just hang." Well, yesterday I thought it was kind of one of those things. So the phone rang while I was talking, and I said hello, to share the fun with you, and it was somebody, and I couldn't. She started to talk, and I couldn't understand what she was saying. So I thought, well, it's another one of these robocalls that where the caller is uh, perhaps not English as their first language, and so she said, "Do you have time to talk?" And I still thought it was a robocall. I said, "No," but then I thought better. I said, "Who is this?" And it's a dear friend of ours, uh, tell, with some serious news uh, about a mutual friend of ours who was seriously ill and in the hospital. So that's when I had to say, I have to take this call, and so that's why I sort of cut the visit short yesterday. Well, it was definitely a serious message. And our dear friend, Sel Heidel, who we've known for well over 25 years, a lodge member, an OTO 6 degrees. So he's been in the order a long, long time. I believe was probably initiated by Grady McMurtry himself way back in the late 70s. And very interesting person. I'm going to share some thoughts about Sel. Uh, and that he was not expected to live through the day. And so I thanked her. And later on that day, and Constance and I, you know, did what we do, meditatively, magically, for people that we know are ill. And later on that day, I got a call back from the same sister uh, who said that Sel had passed away. And he'd been so ill for so long, and because he's getting old, like us, I think he was a little younger than Constance and I, but not much. Uh, but I want to share a few things about Sel. He was born in Salt Lake City. This is as far as I know. Okay, I don't have his birth certificate or anything, but my understanding is uh, he was born in Salt Lake City, and he had one brother, Tim, who became, I believe, a Michelin chef, Michelin star chef. Uh, and anyway, he was a very, very accomplished chef. His parents, I'm not sure what they did for a living. They had a beautiful a middle class home in Salt Lake City, and they were very social minded people, very progressively uh, social minded people. And they opened their house to. Have you ever heard of the Green Book? Now, for many years, all over the United States, uh, it was very difficult for Black people, especially Black families, Black entertainers. It was very difficult for them to find lodging in almost every city. And if a Black family or a Black individual uh, uh, needed to drive cross country, there were only certain places that they could stop for gas. There's only certain places they could stop for food, and there were even less places for them to stop for lodging. And some wise and smart person started to publish uh, what was called the Green Book, which is a pamphlet for Black travelers and or anyone, any Black person, or person who was discriminated against. In many places, that was Jews also. Uh, and they were, my understanding is, they were an address on the Green Book. And uh, so they let people, and Salt Lake, of course, is a very, very conservative area. I don't think Sel's parents were Mormon, uh, Mormonism is a perpetual background meditation in Utah, especially Salt Lake. Not that that's a bad thing, but anyway, so they Sel, when he and his brother were growing up, uh, were exposed to the great black uh, musicians who came through town because the various hotels in town that hosted Count Basie and Louis Armstrong and they played in Salt Lake, but they couldn't sleep there, and so they slept at Sel's house. And he had growing up he had this wonderful uh, uh, progressive attitude uh, toward people, and it was wonderful. But Sel, they discovered that as a child, they discovered that he had learning difficulties, and he was diagnosed as being what they called retarded in those days. And so when he went to school, he was in the retarded section and such. And he could never learn to read or write. And I say this with a caveat. He, growing up, going through school, he could not read or write. But he went to school. He listened to the lessons. He observed things going on. I'm telling you all of this uh, because growing up, his head, the front of his head, even was a bit misshapen, and in the ignorance of the day, everyone thought, well, that's just sort of the genetic malfunction, that goes with his retardation, and so he grew up that way, but he was smart. Okay, he was very smart, and he eventually was befriended by a couple of local Salt Lake uh, individuals who were very interested in Aleister Crowley, very interested in magic, and were among the first few years of OTO initiates that traveled to Berkeley to be initiated by Hymenaeus Alpha or Grady McMurtry. And so, and Thelemites sort of took him under their wing, and he was initiated. He took his Minerval, I believe, under Grady McMurtry. And so eventually, uh, he and other Salt Lake friends visited us at our lodge in Costa Mesa. As a matter of fact, Sel was with us in 1980. They stayed with us for a few days, okay? In 1980, when we went to the famous eat a hot dog on a Friday Discordian trip to Angel Stadium. That Sel there in the big hat, and that Romanian Orthodox priest there giving benediction. That's me. That little kid up my side there is Jean Paul. Okay, but I think we got another picture here. This is us getting ready to go. I'm taking the picture, so I'm not in there, but that Sel, he's a big, big guy. Okay, there's Constance, and there's little Jean Paul. We all went to eat a hot dog at Angel Stadium on Friday the 13th. This is in 1980. I'll talk about that in a minute. Uh, but anyway, it was during this stay with us that Sel, because he visited uh, doctors regularly, he had regular checkups, and so he went to the University of Irvine Hospital, which actually is in Santa Ana, but it's one of the best hospitals in the world. And someone at the hospital noticed something about Sel that piqued their curiosity. Now, he couldn't read or write or anything else, so he never took any sort of written IQ test. But somebody had developed a non-written uh, series of verbal questions uh, whereby they could at least generally judge the general IQ level of the person without having to write stuff down. And not only did they discover that he had normal intelligence, they discovered that no, he was not retarded, okay, but he had an above average uh, IQ level. And so they said, stay with us for another day. We want to take some MRIs and x-rays and things like that of your brain. And they discovered he had a baseball size tumor near his frontal lobe. That was what had been it was not malignant, but it was huge, and it was there, and it was pressing on all the things that help you read and write and and do all of that. And they didn't let him out of the hospital. We're going to have to take that thing out. But it was a very dangerous procedure. And they said if it's successful, there was a high percentage he would not live through the surgery. But he was determined, you know, if there's any chance, I want it. And it was so charming. Uh, he wore his big black OTO robe in the hospital. Okay, and I believe at the time he was a second degree at the time, so it had whatever the regalia is. Okay, and because he couldn't read, uh, you know, he practiced a pentagram ritual in his this huge guy. He probably wore a cowboy hat while he was doing it. Huge guy in the hospital hallway with earphones, listening to the banishing ritual of the pentagram, and he was doing the banishing ritual of the pentagram while listening to it. And he, of course, everybody fell in love with him at the hospital. And his mother was still alive at that time. And we talked to her on the telephone. And we sort of prepared her that, you know, the doctor said, you know, this could really turn the lights on for Sel. But there's a high possibility that he might not make it through the surgery. And I said, we'll call you as soon as we know something. Well, they did remove it, and he did live through the surgery, and he was on massive anti-seizure drugs, some of which he continued throughout the rest of his life. Because brain surgery of that nature that nature is actually brain injury of that nature. But anyway, it was like when he came to, and then he recovered for several weeks, maybe a month. Recovered at our house in Costa Mesa, and it was when you looked into his eyes, it was like the lights had come on. Okay, that's the first thing I noticed, and I called Cell's mother and I said, "Cell's out. Uh, the operation was a success. Uh, he's alive. He's home with us." And uh, she said, "Did it work?" And I said, when we look into his eyes now, it's like the lights are on. And she cried, and it was very poignant. Uh, about a week with him staying with us and us making, you know, caring for it. But he was all wrapped up and he wasn't like flat on his back or anything. And we were watching television with him and everything else. And Constance and I went shopping. Okay. And when we came back from shopping, Cell was gone. Uh, and his car was gone. And we were worried, oh my God, he's out in the car. He left us a written note. You know, gone for what he, oh, probably gone for nail polish. Okay, he had a great collection of nail polish. Okay, I think he went for, but he wrote a note. He printed a note. Now, this is a guy who did not read or write, but somehow in his training, going to school and watching people learn to read and write, it got in there somewhere, and he could read and write. He always had a little difficulty with it, but it was a miracle. Okay, and so it was about that period uh, that we knew everything was going to be okay with Cell, and he visited us very often throughout his life. He always had a big, beautiful standard poodle that was his companion, and when that uh, uh, the first one was named Katie, and dogs don't last forever. Okay, and Katie died eventually after so many years, and he was convinced that he needed to buy the puppy that she would incarnate into, come back as a puppy, and he was convinced he's going to come back as a standard poodle, and he wanted us to help find what part of the country she was going to be born into. Now that's something I've never tried before, but I was working with a pendulum at that time, and I said, well, let's try this. Let's get out a map and see where on the map uh, Katie's going to be. It is the map of the USA because he wasn't going to go out of the country. And I held the map over the US, or I held the pendulum over the USA map and said, okay, where is Katie going to be incarnated? Okay. And uh, held it over the East Coast, the West Coast, Midwest, North, South, everything else. Got it to California. And it started to move. And then I took it south a little bit and a little bit east a little bit. And then finally, it's just really started to go. Yeah, okay. My affirmative is always clockwise. That's what I do. And it was the area in the, I believe, in the general vicinity of Central California. Uh, so we got out the directory because we didn't have internet at that time. Okay, everything was like phone books and stuff. But we got out a directory of all of the standard poodle breeders in that area. And there was only like four. So we called all four of those breeders and said, I know this sounds funny, but have you had a litter of standard poodle puppies uh, in the last, whatever the time period was? And we found one that did. I said, do you have any of the pups for sale? And they said, yes. Do you have a female? Why, yes, we do. So Sel drove up there and like Tibetans finding the next Dalai Lama, they Sel got himself an incarnation of the next incarnation. He called her Katie Babylon, and she eventually died too, and he had another one. And when the third Katie died, uh, that's when Sel started to uh, kind of give up. Okay, because he was a bachelor. He was gay, but he was a bachelor. Um, never really had a significant permanent companion except for the dog. And he'd every mass that he ever Gnostic mass that he ever attended at our house, Katie was there. Every initiation that Sel took, Katie was with him during his initiation. Uh, we joked and said, Katie has seen every initiation from Minerval to six, you know. At Pantheacon, or excuse me, Noticon, uh, there's always a big mass at Noticon. Katie was there. Now, what was Sel doing through all of this time? He became a master potter. He had a kiln in his house. He was a master potter. I've got a couple things to show you. First of all, he had what we call his blue period. Now there's cups, there's mugs, there's vases, and there's bowls. And this is one of his bowls. I mean, he did a lot of them. And I think, let's see if I can read it here. I think he says to Lon and Constance DuQuette even, and he signed it. Yeah, to the DuQuettes. And there's his little hieroglyphs down there. It's porcelain, okay? Look at this. Now, he would bring these to Noticons, and he tried, and he showed at pottery exhibits and things like that. Um, but he never got, what you would think would be necessary for him to really put himself on the pottery map, because he never had a real live agent that could handle those things. Uh, so anyway, uh, but he was making pottery right up to the last. Not only that, he made pieces of art. He made masks. Uh, I'm hopeful, and I think it's highly likely that a large collection of his works will be taken by uh, by sympathetic supporters there in the local area. He also had a lot of early OTO memorabilia, because he went through the grades almost during the prototype uh, execution of the degrees, and he had uh, things that are now very formal regalia, and different kinds of aprons and stuff were all homemade at the time, and that material uh, is finding its way to the OTO archives, and I think the good people at Golden Lotus have a bunch of stuff that we turned over to them. But anyway, uh, we miss Sel very much, and it was very painful uh, watch and be aware of the deterioration uh, process in anyone's end of life. Uh, but even that was Cell made interesting, colorful, and dramatic. Uh, those pictures I showed you, okay. Cell was, active with our lodge, Haru Raha Lodge, and this is our little magazine. We called it Oyez. Of course, it's pronounced Oye. Uh, and this is the summer 1980 edition, and it's called the Sacred Cow edition. And that's me eating a hot dog there, dressed up like an Orthodox bishop. Um, I'll explain that in a second. But this is the sigil, if you will, of the Discordians, who worship the goddess Eris, the goddess of discord. And it says Kalasti there, which is to the fairest. And it's based on this is a Robert Anton Wilson early thing. Here, I'll read it to you for a second. Um, okay. I talk about the guild system in the OTO, the groups that have the same interests, or same business, or in the same business, or in the same art, or the same interests, can form little guilds within the OTO lodge, like you know. Okay, one of the most popular and unusual guilds. This is for our lodge. Okay, was the Guild of Dynamic Discord, or GODD, and just made up of fans of the underground magico mystico masterpiece of the 1960s, Principia Discordia, or How I Found the Goddess and what I did to her when I found her. Now, this is early Robert Anton Wilson stuff. And a lot of us had really gotten a kick out of this because it was like a phony organization. Okay, it was fun. Okay, Principia Discordia. If you haven't if you haven't read it, I'm sure you can download it from the internet, and probably uh, you'll probably thank me. Okay. Um, uh, Principia Discordia, which spawned such more recent hits as Robert Anton Wilson's The Illuminatus trilogy and Cosmic Trigger. GODD organized the now famous Eat a Hot Dog on Friday the 13th field trip to Angel Stadium, which delighted and outraged Southern California baseball fans. See article and picture inside. For those who have never been exposed to the sublime transcendent nonsense of Discordia, we offer this brief glimpse at what has been described by some as the summit of modern Zen and by others as a complete waste of time. Okay. Uh, Here is why uh, you eat a hot dog on Friday. Okay. And it's part of the Five Commandments or the Pentabarf. There is no goddess but Eris. Okay, here's the Pentabarf. Know ye this, O man of faith. 1. There is no goddess but the goddess, and she is your goddess. There is no Irisian movement but the Irisian movement, and it is the Irisian movement. And every golden apple core is the beloved home of a golden worm. Now, the idea, the goddess Eris, okay, she was snubbed at a party between Venus, Aphrodite, Athena, all the cool chicks of the Greek pantheon, and she wasn't invited to a tea party or something. And so she had Hephaestus, okay, the blacksmith god, uh, make a golden apple that said Callisti on it, which means to the fairest. And then she kind of snuck behind a curtain at the tea party and rolled the apple in. And Aphrodite picked it up and goes, "Ah, a beautiful golden, oh, to the fairest it must be for me." And Athena snatched it from her and said, "No, I'm the fairest." And you get it. She caused chaos. She caused discord. So that's Eris. Okay. That's what the golden apple's about. Commandment number 2 is a Discordian shall always use the official Discordian document numbering system. And the document numbering system is always 3 or 4 zeros before the number. It's a big thing. Okay. And here it is. A Discordian is required during his early illumination to go off alone and partake joyously of a hot dog on Friday. This devotional ceremony to remonstrate against the popular paganisms of the day. Now, this is like in the 60s, okay, so there's a lot of things going on, a lot of proscriptions in the Roman Catholic Church that they've sort of let slide since then. But when this was written, so a hot dog sort of goes against Catholic Christendom, so no meat on Friday. Of Judaism, no meat of pork. Of the Hindic people, no meat of beef. Of Buddhists, no meat of animal, and of Discordians, no hot dog buns. A Discordian shall partake of no hot dog buns, for such was the solace of Our Lady Goddess when she was confronted with the original snub. So she went off. Five, last commandment. A Discordian is prohibited of believing what he reads. It is so written. So let it be. Hail Discordia. Prosecutors will be transgressicuted. Okay, so we set up an eat a hot dog on Friday. There was an Angel baseball game. Uh, and we loved baseball, and Angels were always in last place, okay, at the time. But we liked the name of our team. Our local team is called the California Angels. Okay. So we ordered a block of seats, a group seating, because when you have a group seating, they put welcome, haru raha la, JOTO, you know, on the big screen, you know, and show our pictures, you know, the camera goes to it. So I think I ordered 30, 30 tickets. And I invited people from work. My boss and her husband came. Okay, we had a lot of people come to the game because uh, anyway. Uh, but we dressed up, as many as possible, dressed up in clergy costumes. So there were a couple of very good nun costumes, and quite a few of you know, black shirts and Catholic collars and stuff. And I put on my black robe, and Constance helped make or fashion a black sort of veil-like thing that looked just like a Greek Orthodox or a Russian Orthodox or a Romanian or Eastern Orthodox Christian bishop. And uh, uh, I was going to have my picture taken eating a hot dog. Okay, but there were so many of us dressed up like clergy that the the people at the ballpark, including the concession stand, oh, here you go, sister. Here are your 9 beers, sister. You know, and uh, and yes, they did put up uh, the big sign and everything else. And Sel was one of the members who gathered with us before that. Okay, now I'm taking the picture, and there's a few of us. Look at little Jean Paul. And there's me. I guess I wasn't taking the picture, I was over there. That guy in the tuxedo t shirt, that's Doug James. I don't think he'll object to us showing this. And this is just out in front of, uh, yeah, this is out in front of our house just before we all got in cars. Okay, the guy right there, the with the suit and the sort of Islamic-looking mustache, that's my coworker, uh, Atik Razul Raja, and he spoke with a very, very thick Pakistani. Actually, he's a doctor. Okay, he was a real doctor, and he worked with me at the medical device lab. But he just thought this was great fun, and so he went. But I asked him to be to act as my interpreter. So I said, I'll pretend that I don't speak English and you can interpret for me. Okay. Because his accent was so thick. He says, Bishop say, Rod Carew baseball good. You know. Uh, but anyway, so that's the scene. Okay. Now, here's another picture of Sel. He's in that cowboy hat. And he's watching me eat a hot dog on Friday. Now, I hadn't had any meat at all for 13 years when that picture was snapped. Okay. And there's Constance looking just like she does today. It's scary. And there's Jean Paul. Okay. There's Papa eating a hot dog and a hot dog bun. Okay, here's, let's see, here's some other members of our team. You can't see the one, but he had eyeballs that bounced out on springs. And there's Doug sitting there drinking a beer. And there's our good friend Stephen New. There, he's still in contact with us. And I'm giving the blessing to everybody. And there's Sel, and there's Atik, and another priest, and Constance and Jean Paul. And the seating goes on way over there too. But okay, how do I do this? And there's people sitting behind us. Believe it or not, they're OTO members from the Rosicrucians. And they were, oh God, there it is again. Excuse me for a second. Hello. No, you've reached the wrong number. I didn't have to play with that one. And there I've got a baseball glove in my hand. And every time uh, uh, the Angels got a hit or a home run or made a good play, I would slap my knee and go, baseball, baseball, baseball. And Atik over here would say, Bishop says baseball. And there's a close-up of the last of the first meat munch in 13 years going down. And that, of course, is the cover of Oyez. Well, Sel Heidel was a part of all that fun. And we miss him very, very, very much. And in a way, he's a wonderful testament to Thelemic Fellowship. Anyway, that's it for today. I've gone way over. But anyway, Sel, we miss you. And I'm sure you're with several incarnations of your beloved Katie Babylon 2, and all of that. Anyway, until tomorrow, continue to be good to yourself, be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will. Baseball. Rod Carew. Reg